I want to create a world where people just forget who their hosting company is because it's just reliable.
You're watching your followers decrease, and you don't necessarily have a compass to tell you what to do to change that.
So if you have 1 million followers and Instagram tomorrow decides to ban you for some arbitrary reason, you've just lost all of them.
If the algorithm decides that you're no longer important, then they're not going to do anything to protect
Correct.
you. Hey, Stacy.
Hey, Jesse.
We're at WordCamp Asia in Mumbai, India. How's your WordCamp going?
It's awesome. It's been phenomenal so far.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Why?
Yeah, every time I come to a WordCamp, it reminds me why I fell in love with WordPress. And the core of it is the people. And especially this one, it's just the energy and the excitement everybody has in regards to just coming together and talking about WordPress and meeting different people who love WordPress as much as I do.
Yeah, that's how I got my start too, in WordCamps. I went to a local WordCamp, and then people helped me get things going and answered my questions. I started building websites, and then I felt very compelled to kind of give back and do the same exact thing.
Exactly.
And
Yep.
it's a very return on investment
Yep.
kind of thing, where everyone is helping each other get started and get going, and then all of a sudden it kind of snowballs into
Yeah.
you have a passion for it.
Yep.
Yeah, and there's a vibe here in India. There's something special
yeah.
about it.
It
Yeah.
is. It's a special place. Yes.
This is your first time in Asia?
Yes. Yep.
Yeah, in India too,
Yeah.
obviously. Yeah,
Yeah.
mine too. It's been something else.
Yeah.
And the crowds here have been amazing. There's so many people,
Yeah.
and they're all just so eager to learn and to talk, and yeah. But you deal with people all the time, and you're always, you have employees at Automattic that you're working with, and then you have essentially like colleagues that you're working with outside of Automattic. Tell everybody what you're working on.
Yeah. So I am the director of affiliate and influencer marketing for Automattic. And that entails overseeing a very big portfolio of different products. So our affiliate program covers all of WordPress.com, the Woo Marketplace, Pressable, Jetpack, and a bunch of other little things that are involved in there. But the influencer program covers all of Automatic's products. So everything from Tumblr to Day One to WordPress.com. So it's an aspect of, coordinating amongst multiple teams to figure out what everybody needs from social media to PR. And we all come together and just get it all created
That's great. And so you have influencers all around the globe?
everywhere,
That's amazing.
absolutely everywhere.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
so you're empowering people to basically make money because they're talking about WordPress and WordPress.com and all these other products that
Yes.
Automatics are
Yep.
working on. How do you tie that back into the WordPress community?
It, it- you know, there's a symbiotic relationship that we have with our community. It's an aspect of we need our community, and in order to keep our community, we need to make sure that they're getting paid to talk about us. And so when I look at my affiliate program or my influencer program, I'm looking at how can I use my marketing dollars to make number one, somebody else's lives focused on WordPress, and how can I pay them for talking about us? And it just allows me to have a wider reach and spread the love of WordPress because it's something that I don't want to go away. And I'm going to do everything in my power to create new audiences coming in talking about WordPress.
Right, right. Yesterday, you and I took a ride around Mumbai, and one of the things you said was that you need to make sure that people can actually afford to talk about these products. And at first, my thought was, well, it's not that hard to launch a website. It's not very costly to host it. And then what you were actually talking about is not the actual infrastructure and the hosting of the website or the posting of these videos, but it's the actual work that goes into creating this content.
Yeah.
And so it's a little bit of a different feel for me because my whole life I've been working on WordPress and I've been talking about it and everything else, and but I haven't necessarily generated income from
Yeah.
that. But you're working with folks and helping them to actually develop content.
Yes.
And so
Yes.
these people are making a living off of this content.
Correct. Yeah. And it's an important part of any company is to realize that as a company, we have one voice. We have our marketing team. They can put out a message. But when I can bring an entire coalition of 1,000, 2,000 affiliates to talk about the same thing at the same time, that amplifies what we're doing. So being able to say, okay, we're going to launch one of our new things is we launched plugins and themes on all paid plans. Well, I can go ahead and do all the talking I want so that I can give them the information that they need so that they can communicate that message to them.
And so when you think about now Automatic's audience, you're not actually just thinking about the people who subscribe to the WordPress.com
Yes.
blog or the Automatic YouTube channel or something like that. You're thinking about it from the perspective of through the lens of all your
Hmm.
influencers. You have this wider audience.
Yeah.
And it's not necessarily that you control the message, but you influence the
Yeah.
influencers around what it is that they can talk about.
Correct. Because I have all the data.
Yeah.
Like I'm sitting on a gold mine of data and it does nothing for our affiliates if I just sit on it. But if I start seeing a trend and pattern that, hey, this article that you're doing about do it yourself, make a website is actually converting recipe owners,
Hmm.
websites. Maybe you should create an article specifically for this demographic.
Yeah.
I know who's converting.
Hmm.
And so when I can feed that information back to those affiliates, they can create niche content that number one is going to be higher on organic reach because it's more of a niche aspect. But then it's actually them catering to who their customer is. And for
Right.
them, it's whoever's converting.
Yeah, okay. And so you're not necessarily looking at people who are specifically selling like WordPress hosting or something like that.
Nope.
You're thinking about it from a perspective of these are individuals who have a bead on what it is that people need to get
Yes.
online.
Yep.
And so these people are posting their content on social media and
Hmm.
across different platforms. Does that become contradictory with owning a website?
Um, Explain that a little bit
So
more.
like you're an
Yeah.
Instagram influencer.
Yep.
But they're telling people to launch a website,
Oh, yeah.
right?
Um, that's a phenomenal question. Because it's the one thing that people don't understand. That they don't. It's not that they don't understand. They just don't know what they don't
Right.
know.
Yeah.
So my biggest thing is never to build a business off of somebody else's business.
Okay.
And what I mean by that is Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, it's a company that has free will.
Yep.
And you can go ahead and create your entire persona off of that social media platform. And let's say they take away the ability for you to actually post there or to put hashtags or to advertise that you're advertising.
Right.
They've just taken away your entire line of communication with the people who love you.
Yeah.
So if you have 1 million followers and Instagram tomorrow decides to ban you for some arbitrary reason, you've just lost all of them.
Yeah.
So creating a website changes that.
Yep.
Because if you can go ahead and start promoting, like, hey, here's my website, go ahead and subscribe to my newsletter because I have little tidbits here and there. I share things through that I don't actually share on social media. You now own your customer, you own your followers. They are yours.
Right.
Nobody can take those away from you. There's no Instagram who can come in and say, I'm taking all of your newsletter subscribers away from you. Those are yours.
Yeah.
You get to control the message. You get to control the look, the feel, all of that. And that's the one thing that sustains a company. You have to diversify
Right.
because there's too many companies making too many decisions that impact what you're going to do in the long run.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
I think that one of the things that's pretty interesting is just that, so, most people are viewers and not creators.
Hmm.
But I think there's something about creating that everybody kind of feels like excited about it or they want to be. And maybe it's something they hope to be able to do someday. But the influencers that you're talking to are probably a little bit more savvy in the terms of like the open web and the need for a website.
Yeah.
But do you get the sense that most people who are on Instagram and TikTok and all these other platforms don't necessarily understand the risk of building on these platforms?
Yeah, I don't think the majority do. When we talk to influencers, the first question I ask them is, what is your website? And the majority of them say, well, I don't have one. But
Right.
it allows me to say, hey, here's a reason why.
Yeah.
There's a bit of of wonderfulness of being able to send somebody to your links, and it's going to your custom domain, which is your name, which is
Right.
again another layer of branding,
Yep.
instead of some generic page. Yeah, so I mean, but again, it's an aspect of they don't know what they don't know.
Right.
And so that's my job is to like, oh, there's this phenomenal thing that you can own,
Yeah.
and here it is. And
Yeah.
here's how we can get you onto your own domain and your own
Right.
website.
Yeah, it's interesting because we talk to folks who, like we had Pork Bun,
Hmm.
is a registrar, and we had a guest on, and we talked about the value of domains
Yeah.
and the fact that you have your own real estate, you kind of own your own portion of the
Yeah.
internet, and you get to brand it, and it can be cool and interesting and fun. And a lot of people don't even recognize this, but you can buy a domain and point it to anything you want
Yeah.
to.
Absolutely.
So, you know, one of the things that comes up repeatedly on this podcast is this idea of owning your influence
Hmm.
because of that exact reason that
Yep.
people are building their entire business on this very fragile
Yeah. Very.
ecosystem.
Yeah.
And they don't understand the fact that these algorithms can basically pull the rug out
Yep.
from under you all the time.
Yeah.
And, to people listening at home, one of the things that you can probably resonate with pretty quickly is that there was probably someone on TikTok that you loved, and
Hmm.
now you just don't see them anymore,
Right. Yeah.
or on Instagram the same way.
Yep.
And you don't necessarily have the mechanism to think, oh, wait, this is suddenly missing from my
Yep.
feed. And so I don't have the ability. So even as a follower, you don't have control over the content that
Yeah.
you're viewing because there's this algorithm that's making decisions for you.
Correct.
And that's super frustrating for an influencer who's going out there and building a whole brand around
Yeah.
something. And the worst thing I've seen is the shadow banning idea,
Yeah.
where it's like you're watching repeatedly, you're watching your followers grow and grow and grow.
Yep.
And then all of a sudden they just start sinking and there's no information. There's
Yeah.
nothing telling you as to what's going on there. And what we were talking about yesterday is this idea is that like you're watching your followers decrease and you don't necessarily have a compass to tell you
Yep.
what to do to change that. And then so what do you do? How do you communicate with those customers?
Yep.
How do you reach out to them? Because if the algorithm is not broadcasting your content anymore, then you have absolutely no
Yeah. You have no
way to
voice.
reach into
Yeah.
those. And so the value of the open web and the value of WordPress is that every one of those subscribers, whether they're subscribing to an RSS feed or an email or
Mhm.
whatever, you have a way to reach them
Yeah.
independent of some third party.
Exactly.
And the only real thing that's, I guess, a variable would be your hosting company that you
Correct. Yep.
choose. And so this is the common theme on this podcast is to make sure that you're choosing an ethical,
Yeah.
strong, good host that offers, managed WordPress hosting. One of the hosts that you build an influencer network around is Pressable and others,
Yeah.
WordPress.com.
Yep.
They're powered by WP Cloud.
Exactly. Yep.
And, we manage this entire platform for those hosts, but in a sense, we actually manage it for those end customers as well. So your influencers, if they're selling these products to those end customers, they get a little bit more of a platform feel because they don't have to be hyper familiar with performance issues and
Right.
security
Right.
and all that stuff. Does that make it a little bit easier to sell to that crowd?
It does because there's an aspect of people want to be safe on the internet.
Yeah,
They also, if they're building a business and they want that website to be their home base, they want to make sure that everything is secure and that it's not going to go down.
right.
And they need reliability. One of my things is I want to create a world where people forget who their host is.
Yeah,
Because if you're constantly getting downtime
yep,
notifications or your customers can't reach your website, that is a constant reminder of your host.
right.
And I want to create a world where people just forget who their hosting company is because it's just reliable.
Yeah,
It just goes
right.
and you don't have to worry about it.
Yeah,
I ran a business online for 12 years and I can't tell you the panic I would feel when I knew that my website went down and I had
yeah,
no control over that.
right.
And so, I put myself in their shoes and it's like, you want a reliable company that's going to be there for you.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yep. And I think it's interesting because, when you're building a website these days, um, there is a barrier of entry that requires some level of technical
Yeah.
knowledge.
Yep.
But when you look at things like Linktree, Instagram, whatever, you're basically essentially filling out a web form,
Hmm.
right? And so there's literally no barrier of entry. And the problem I see with that is that it means that you have absolutely no need to familiarize yourself with the way in which the algorithm works. And
Hmm.
so, it kind of circles back to what we were talking about earlier, which is that you have no idea what the risk is and how fragile things
Right.
are.
Yep.
So, with the open web and the fact that you own your content, you own your connection to your customers, you own your influence, WordPress can act as a hub.
Yep.
And so I'm curious, like, are you thinking about how WordPress can act and operate in that way and to help people like distribute their content and like work in tandem with social media, but
Hmm.
use WordPress as a fallback?
Yeah. So when I ran my business, it was post first on a website and then send out to everything else.
Yeah.
So we had a daily newsletter, and I had independent contractors who created content for the store, and they would post on WordPress and advertise what they were putting in the store. And from there, it would RSS feed to our email,
Right.
and then send out a daily newsletter.
Yeah. Okay.
Our daily newsletter became our number one return on investment.
Yeah.
We ended up with like a 64% open rate and a 34% click rate. And, it became our number one way of sales.
Yep.
And so, setting it up in regards to that, being able to start with a website and then push out from there, there's this aspect of you've got that forever legacy on
Yeah.
your website.
Yeah.
And if you start there, when you think about it, you go ahead and spend more time thinking about what you're going to post.
Yeah.
Um, or, for a lot of our creators, what they do is they create a video for YouTube. And then what we suggest is like, okay, you need to take that transcript
Yeah.
and you need to tell it in a different way, but put it into a blog article
Right.
on your website.
Yep.
And then from that, you take TLDR from that and you post it on social media and you link back to your blog post. And from your blog post, you link to your YouTube. And so you have this one piece of content, which is a video, but it also lives on your website. It lives in social media. It's this diversification of all of your content needs to be in these different places.
Yeah.
Because if it is, then if this one over here goes down, you still have all these other
Right.
areas that you're covering.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And a lot of people, from my security background, a lot of the things that we would run into is the fact that people wouldn't think that they were vulnerable to being hacked
Yep.
or anything like that because they felt like, oh, I'm a mom and pop. Like, why would anyone bother? Or I run a blog. Like, who would want to hack my site? And the reality and the thing I can go back to all the
Yeah.
time is that like hackers are indiscriminately
Yeah.
targeting
They don't
everybody.
care.
But there's kind of a similar thing with these social media
Yeah.
platforms in the sense that they're not in any way incentivized to protect any one
Nope.
influencer.
Nope.
I guess maybe their top 1% of
Right.
influencers they might care about,
Yeah.
but everyone else
Yeah.
they don't care about. And if the algorithm decides that you're no longer important, then they're not going to do anything to protect you.
Correct. Correct.
And so you run into this issue where, and we said this already, that like you could lose your audience overnight.
Mhm.
But with WordPress, you own that. And so the thing I keep going back to is like, how do we make sure that that people own that
Yeah.
influence? And I think you touched on email.
Yep.
Email's a fantastic thing, and you
Absolutely.
have Automattic has tools, Jetpack, MailPoet, things like that. But there's a million things out
Yeah.
there.
Yeah.
And the thing is just get people to subscribe. And I think one of the things that people could start doing is on their social media content is pointing them back
Yep.
to their website.
Absolutely.
And it's funny because almost every social media thing I see, there's always that, don't forget to like and subscribe. I hate doing it on this podcast, but I do it, I do it
Yeah.
because it's important, right? And,
Yep.
and you say like, click the little subscribe button at the
Yep.
bottom. But I never hear people like also go to my website and do this. And I think it's because, the actual social media platforms make it a little bit more difficult to link to things. Like in Instagram, you can put a URL in the comments, but it's not clickable.
Right.
It's so frustrating. One of the things I started doing on my personal blog, so I have jesse.blog. And so for every article I write, I just create a redirect
Mm-hmm.
that makes it super short. So I'll have
Yeah.
this long slug. Like I wrote an article on distraction-free writing. The URL is 60 characters.
Right.
It's
Right.
stupid. But what I did was I used a redirection plugin And so I have jesse.blog slash, I think it's like 11.
Mhm.
And so in the future, I'm going to have videos that are going to come out and do social media. And it's actually very much in alignment with what you were saying, where I have this flagship content on my website, and then I record myself saying it,
Yeah.
and then I'm going to distribute it out.
Yep.
And now on the videos of that recording, it'll have a little jesse.blog slash
Yes.
11,
Yep.
which makes it super quick and easy for everybody
Right.
to jump to WordPress. And then my hope is that, people will subscribe on
Yep.
that spot. And so then that way, if social media, deems my content unimportant, but it's not just that though. Like we saw this with TikTok, like there was a moment of risk there where the
Mhm.
platform itself could just become unavailable
Right.
to
That's
people.
that's what I and this is the thing that just it 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 makes me kind of giggle when people say this. They're like, "Well, it's not going away."
Yeah.
But it
But you might be going away.
what happened to
Right.
Twitter Vine? What happened to Vine? It went
Yeah.
away.
Right.
People
That's a great
built their
point.
business on Vine.
Yeah.
They built an entire personality, and then the company decided, you know what? This is not making us the
Yeah.
money that it needs to make.
Right.
We're going to do away with it.
Yeah.
And so here are these people who put all their time and energy into this, and it's just gone.
Right.
And that's the scary part of it, is that you don't have any control. Whereas with a website, that is your control.
Yeah. That's a great
And,
point.
and if they fit it in, there's a whole aspect of you build your social media, but then you also figure out, okay, how can I get people to my website?
Right.
And you offer them
Yeah.
things that are exclusive to your website.
Yep.
And then you're like, okay, sign up for my newsletter and you're going to get this. Like,
Yeah.
there's this whole aspect of pushing them back to your website. So again, you can own them because you don't know what the executives at these social medias are going to make the decision on next. And it
Yeah.
could just be you.
Right. So for the people at home who are listening, a lot of them are people who are working for hosting companies,
Mhm.
people who are running agencies, things like that. What advice would you have for them in the realm of trying to shift the paradigm, get people to come to their hosting company, but also like how do they get started in influencing and getting a network of people together to start promoting their brands? Now, there are a ton of hosting companies out
Yeah.
there who, if we think about the top 10% of hosting companies, they're probably all doing this
Hmm.
already. But there's also hundreds, if not thousands, of smaller hosting companies that don't necessarily have a marketing team or a larger
Yeah.
group. So how would they get started?
Start small. That's obviously. But be realistic in regards to it. It's time consuming, and when you think about it, an influencer doesn't immediately go out there and go viral.
Yeah.
That's like winning the lottery type of thing.
Okay.
Being consistent, but then also providing people with solid content. There's sometimes this aspect of if I provide something for free, I'm devaluing me.
Yeah.
Um, However, I found is it's the exact opposite.
Yeah.
When you offer something for free and somebody takes advantage of it, it's usually because they can't afford you yet,
Yeah.
and that's
Okay.
the big word, yet.
Yeah.
But there is going to come a time where they can't afford you, and because you have been top of mind and you have been helpful and provided free things and ideas and thoughts, you're going to be first person they think of. So if
Yeah.
they end up needing a web developer, you're going to be the one that they're going to think of because they're going to be like, oh, Jesse over there, he provided me this free template for my WordPress website. Like,
Yeah.
hey, you don't even have to design it. And it's okay.
Right.
Because again, it's that customer at that time does not need you.
Yeah.
So, it's this aspect of just how do you help a customer who currently cannot, or is not in a position to use you as their web hosting or their web designer. But it's an aspect of putting them first and always understanding their needs and, giving them the knowledge to do things that they want to do.
Yeah.
And so, yeah.
That's great. Well, I think we're going to take a break
Hmm.
and then we're going to come back. Thank you so much for this. It was a
Yeah, of
great
course.
conversation. I can't wait to keep it going.
Awesome.
Awesome. Thanks for joining us on another episode of Impressive Hosting, where we uncover the core tenets of great WordPress hosting. Do you have a follow-up question for today's guest, thought or comment on anything we talked about, a future guest suggestion, a hosting horror story? What do you think makes great WordPress hosting? All your comments shape this show. Drop them on impressive.host. We also appreciate you following us on social media and subscribing to the podcast on your favorite platform. Finally, do check out our list of open source projects that need support at impressive.host. Whether it's code, community, or cache, you can make a difference. See you next time.